Jadíh go léir a chairde agus tá fáilte is fiche roimh isteach go Podchraoladh Turas. Seo é an tríú chlár den Podchraoladh agus an nniu beimiid buú le Beidh Stiofán sé seo Stiofán Carson. Stiofán go mar táú chara?
Ach gur máigad, jazz bhíonn seo.
Jazz bhíonn an stíon seo lear fósta. Stiofán, inis tú fud héan, carabas deit agus céan cinneál coolra atá agat ó hiú na géalaigide?
Is as ar dwatha mé ó thuchas, ach tá mé mothúnaí a mé firste le 10 mbliana nuas. Thosaigh mé ag fólam géalaige thar fan 9 mbliana ó hin, nuair a bhí mé in ollscoil na Riana. Ribh sin an taon taithí a bhí gom leis an géalaigh ná nuair a bhí mé anóg, nuair a bhí mé thart fa 8 mbliana d'aois, begrathlam a bheith ag arc ar SpongeBob SquarePants, trabhain na géalaige agus mé ag fannacht le mo wathair cheach ma cheanthis mo thóra. So sin an céad taithí nó céad teagháil a bhí gom leis an géalaigh, ach in éidir na thosaigh mé ag fólam géalaige go dtí go raibh mé 8 mbliana d'aois. An rud a tharla ná bhí mé mothúnaí le Birch ar ó géalaigh acu in Elms in ollscoil na Riana, agus bhí géalaigh acu agus bhí simógamsa in san ábhar ar ná an ábhar go raibh géalaigh acu. Agus céim mar ag an fuinte sin, bhí rudaí an acu nach raibh agam, agus bhaithí me se flip, well, má tá siad san an géalaigh ólam, well, is féidirlum sa coppla facail ólam fásta. So sin mar a thosaigh mé go ddéireach sin an céad taithí a bhí agam leis an teanga.
Agus céan dóir ar thosaí tú a fólam na géalaige, cinneál céan céad céim a bhí agat ar an turas seo?
Well, ar an chéadal síos an rud a rinn mé na thuí mé ar líne agus tháinig mé ar blas agus an sin ar Ghetabeg atá ag BBC Radio Wallu. So bhí straith Podchraoladh fáil, bhí sé thart fa 10 momentse na mar sin, bhí siad gurrid go leor, agus just bon chóir a géalaige bhí an. Agus bhí mé géisteach le sin, agus céim ar nuair a bhí mise ar scoil, bhí na teanga hí a gcónaí inta dúchlanach, bhí stórfácail le fólam agat, bhí réalathe le fólam agat, agus hí me sé gcónaí go raibh na teanga hí inta dulaí, ach nuair a thosaigh me sé ag fólam lom héan agus just a géisteach le Ghetabeg ar an radio, thug ba fa dear, tá sin másar a siimplí. Agus dóithe go raibh mé níos abaí, agus bhí simogam sin sa rud fásta, so rinn sin an difar a thuairm, ná bhí sé soltwar. Ní mé ra nach rú sé dúchlanach an amnaí, ach bhí sé soltwar agus bhí mé buint soltas. So thos mé dhéanamh sin, bhí an taú orm an fuinte sin ná bhí mé sir, bhí coppla lá sir aginne mar dheall ar an chaisc, so bhí mé an déireas deach ar an obair ag an fuinte sin, agus hamáile sin bhí mé ag deanú cursa sléibhteachta in sna banna bortha, agus bhfuil me le fearr a rugéalaigh gin sin fásta, agus bhí sé ag déireas deach agus ag muoinú na lágáin híú. Agus dúirt sé lom an bhfuil agat an taine atá ar an slíú sin, agus dúirt me sé sin slíomach, agus dúirt sé ach an bhfuil agat ag dé chéalainn sé, agus dúirt me an well, I think sleeve means mountain, agus dúirt sé, yeah, tan ceart agad sa, ach a dé fa muck, agus hí me sé an well, it's a fairly old steep hill, and, morns níl an amsir ó way, so hí me sé, well, maybe that's a mucky hill. Agus dúirt sé, no, muck céalainn sin pigs, agus beidir gur béis seán at tháinig na sean celtí ar láraigh mucka. So, hí me sé grú sin dréachúil mar bhí sé glóirt fan nasc idir na daoine a bhí ina gcónaí an seo agus Virginia, bhí sé glóirt fan star a bhainean leis an chantar. Agus céim ar spráig sin mo him sa géalaigh mar sílim nuair atá coppla facail géalaigh agad sa. Tá sé cos le bheith caiithú speclí don céidir, tá géalvision agad sa agus tá tuaon an cod den do lágáin na hé ibre amach fiú man bhil ach fiche facail géalaigh agad, rud a bhí special dar lom. Ach sin mar a thosaigh me, ar an tairí sin, tá bhfuil sa cuaigdeag, bhí me ag déireas deach ar Now You're Talking, bhí sé séar an eisce ar líne go fuinte sin, agus thosaigh me freastal coppla Jane cursa, agus coppla ran géalaige in ollscoil na Riana ag an fuinte sin. Ag gabhfuil is a séideag, thosaigh me freastal ar rangaí an Turas, agus hamáile sin rinn mé mo GKSA ag gabhfuil is a seachteag. Ag gabhfuil is a hoachteag, no mar sin, bhí mé ggóil hon na géalteacht as athnod, bhí an GKSA agam agus hí me sig méid sé mói déireas deach ar an AS fásta. So rinn mé an AS agus an A-level, gabhí sa 8 agus 9 agus thosaí mé an céim sa géalaigh gabhí sa 9 agus tá sin críicní agam anis. So sin ní mbliana taobh siad a couple of línean sin a céimar a ní mbliana soltmhara a bhí antú gan daidir bé.
Ínta mai. Agus ar nóid bhí múintúirí dathgad don A-level fósta?
Bhí múintear den scoiogam don AS i orla magróirí a tá gobar san éantas orpa. Céimar a nar a bhua mé le múintear A2 het sin tónamachas ruta. John Turas cur a bheith má múintear ag an funte sin.
Ní féidir am as éon tú lead ar bhela ar bhíon sin, ní chum locht ar bhíart. Agus codé tar bon agad an isis Stiofán mar sin ar náid tú stíon seo gobar le Turas ach cén ról atágad an seo?
Well, mar a dúirt mé bhí mé gobar bhí mé frás le rangníonn seo agus beidir 5 bliain ó hin thosaí mé teagas ná chóir rang an seo san siúd taithí teagas go bhíon taithí múinteach na níos mó na rud a bí eile. Ach an nuirí thosaí mé teagas ranga ar feidh bliana agus bhí sin an de software fad. Harfan am sin bhí mé gobar an ollscoil na riana agus bhí mé deanú taide mar an cúlra tugamsa na is doctor mé le cinneal behólaíocht leithis so sin an taithí nó an cúlra tugamsa. Bhí mé gobar ins na ollscoil agus ag deanú taide ar rudí difriúla ach bhí mé gcónaí agsúil go mór leis an déirdaoin leis an rang mar bhí deis tugamsa an rud a bhhailm sé a dheanú. Agus tháinig post an níos an seo an nuirí mar if gap forbartha acmhainní agus hí me sé well man dhéanamh mé inis ní dhéanamh mé hithe so thocraí mé an post sin a ghlacu. Tá mé gobar an seo le bliana nuas agus tá sé thar a bheith soltmhar amach samach céim mar á. Modras na rudaí dhéanamsa tá couple of level a gceist. Dhéanamsa na grá rudaí ó lá go lá so sin ag gobar san áfig ag teagas go ham agus ag cinse go bhfuil rudaí ag na múinteoirí agus ag na fólamóra tháina teagas go mar is ceart. Ar an level eile bíon muid ag díle le grúpaí eile agus tá muid ag plánda thur le chéile agus beidir an level is airde tá muid dhéanú rudaí cos le seo géirí rudaí nua a thosacht an síoidirína tugaine an podchraoladh tugaine. Céimar a tá mé gobar ón na grá rudaí atá ón ó lá go lá tá inta teirtha agus an mhaile sin i géirí bheith ár contosaí ar na rudaí ar feidilean nó na rudaí is feidilean i dhéanú ag an trí na chur bliana. Tá sin an róla tugamsa ach ról an soltmhar amach samach tom gan daidir bé.
Má go leor. Is léir go bhfuil tú sástan sa fóst agus a buint soltas an bhfuil cinneal an bhfuil tú buíoch nó an bhfuil tú cinneal sásta leis an cinniú sin a rinn tú an géala ggólam nó an bhfuil éifealtas ar bíart faoi nó go dé mar a bhhaíonn tú fa cinneal an teanga héan agus an is go bhfuil tú gobar in airnan na géalaige.
Tá mé fearmhaíoch ar an cédal síos gur ghlach mé héan an deis an géala ggólam ach fearmhaíoch as na daoine éalaigh a thug codú dú agus mé ag fólam. Tá an taobharm san is lóm sa géala gahan lád an teachtan agus bíam sé gobar in san áineal. Agus man ró an deise agamsa ní rós agamsa nó nílas agamsa cáte mé hín anis mar tá dhéala cinneal sáte in ahan gréad de ma héal idir má héal farsanta na rudaí dhéanamsa le mar cáirde agus ar neothe síl na hebre tugamsa fásta. Tá an dhéalaigh lárnach in ahan rudaí dhéanamsa ó lá go lá.
Héite sem mú. Agus go ddéireach beidir le críocha chuir le rudaíonn seo an bhfuil moltaí ar bí agad de ólamheoirí nó de ghine tá i deanú staidir an géalaigh agus a géirí a gcuid skillane agus a gcuid muíine cinneal a dheosú get bag?
Well, an rud an taon rud a dúrtham agus sílim gurbéis an rud is úsatí ná bí ag glóirt mancógna dhéanú. Is minic nuair atá gospéis nuair atá daoine fásta ag toseacht amach tá siad burtha go ndeanna siad mancóg ach tá mancógna normalta agus dean ahan duna mancógna so ná bí burtha fa sin agus má tá duine do a cheartú tá siad i dhéanú sin ar waithe le do thud scill na géalaige ó hósú mar deanan siad san na mancógna chearna agus an taon fáhil an Turas sin acu inis ná rin siad an man co-ordinator agus bhí duine do cheartú so sin an rud bí sásta man co-gna dhéanú mar tá sin go bra sin mar atá an saoil agus sin mar atá an dhéalaigh John achan den na man co-gna a chamáile sin buin soltas idir na ranganí géalaige an himachtaí géalaige tar fáil buin soltas bheith fólam géalaige mar rud pleisiirthe tún I mo thuaimsa tá sé cé go mbíonn sé Dillí agus Jackar in ar atá an tuisiil tóirtheach nó an tuisiil Ginnedeach le deanú agad. Tá sé soltmhar chamáile sin agus is ceart go bhfuil sé bh buin soltas de sinna inta teireta mar nuair atá tú buin soltas rud be tú tiomanta an rud sin a bhúlam.
Gur a míle maigad sin an Beidh Stiofán, luair tú go hínta mai agus bhí agallamh de saltmhar an míle buhis agus tíofaí me thu hí staire fan you cup an cafe, Uncle Owen Chester.
Inta mai gur a míle maigad.
I'm more. Okay, Stefan, so we're going to switch over to English here for a bit. How are you?
Not too bad, gur maigad.
Okay, so we're here today, as you know, for the Turas podcast. This is the third episode of our little series here that we've just started there recently. And I'm lucky enough to be joined by Stiofán Carson. Stefan, how are you?
Not too bad, thanks.
Stefan, tell me a bit about your own background and maybe about how and why you started learning Irish for the first time.
Yeah, so I started learning Irish about 9 years ago now. Really when I started in Queen's. So yeah, my first really exposure to the Irish language was when I was sitting in my granny's house watching SpongeBob in Irish on TG Car, because it was the only thing left on TV, sort of waiting on my mum to pick me up. And that was my only exposure until I was about 18. What happened was I was living with two lads that had Irish in Elms in Queen's, and I was kind of amazed that they had this language, this other language that I knew nothing about. But there was also that element of, well, they have something that I don't have. I'm going to learn it too, a wee competitive edge. And that was really how I started. Very much just doing it because it was something to kill the time. So I started on Gitabeg, which is a series that Blas on BBC Radioolú had put together. And I suppose for me, whenever I was at school, I found learning languages like French or German very challenging, and I was never very good at them at all. But this was quite manageable, and it was quite enjoyable. Now, no doubt I was that wee bit older, that wee bit more mature, but I think I was actually interested in it, and I found it a lot easier to learn Irish than I'd found to learn French or German. So that was really how I started learning Irish.
And so how did you kind of progress from that point of sort of starting out, speaking and learning the language for the first time to eventually sort of achieving fluency?
Yeah, well, it was sort of a very stepwise process. Started out in 2015, was just listening to a few podcasts like Gitabeg, and then I started doing Now You're Talking. I think every beginner learner's been burnt by Now You're Talking at one stage or another, but it is probably still the best book for beginners. It has so much material, and in fact I would say if I was to open Now You're Talking now, I would find something new or a new way of saying something. So it is a fantastic resource. So I started with Now You're Talking, and then started going to a few Jane courses and things and night classes in Queen's. In 2016 I started here learning Irish, and then did my GCSE in that year. I started going to the Gaeltacht, and because I'd done my GCSE, I'd went and done a few Gaeltacht trips. I sort of thought, right, next step is to go and do the AS level and the A level. So I did that in 2018 and 2019, and then started my degree in 2019, which I've just finished up there last week. I suppose there has been that aspect of learning, formally, but there's also then just being out with the crack with your mates and living with Irish speakers, which is another thing that I did, which I think is a massive help.
And so obviously now you're working with Turas, and you have been for the past, almost a year now, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit about the role you have here with Turas and what sort of work you do on a daily basis and how it's maybe different from what you were doing before?
Yeah, so I sort of maybe started teaching in Turas. It was 5 years ago now, but it was always very much, it was more teaching experience than anything else. So I would take the odd wee class here or there. But last year, I had the opportunity to take a full class for a year, and that was brilliant, and I really enjoyed that. Now, my sort of training, I'm a doctor in cellular microbiology by trade, and I was working in Queen's, doing a bit of research, and it was enjoyable, don't get me wrong, but I found myself looking forward to my class every Thursday, looking forward to going into Turas and teaching. And then this job that I'm currently in now, which is a capacity development coordinator, come up. And I sort of thought to myself, well, look, if I don't do this now, I'll never do it. So it was the right juncture to sort of go into Irish and see what it was like as much as anything. So I'd have to say it's been a fantastic experience. It's been incredibly enjoyable. My job really probably consists of 3 levels. So there's the day-to-day work, which is just making sure that chairs are out, classes have people in them, all that sort of day-to-day stuff, which is incredibly important, right down to making sure that there's biscuits and milk. But it's all that sort of very important stuff to make sure the classes run smoothly. Then you have sort of that mid-level, which is dealing with people with emails, putting notes together, making sure that stuff's up online, speaking to our volunteers to see how they're getting on or if we can do anything to help them, etc. And then the sort of the high level stuff, which is, things like working on this podcast, working on the website that we have, looking at registration, which is planning maybe not just within the next couple of days or next couple of weeks, but even within the next year or 2 years. So it's thoroughly enjoyable experience. And, it is probably the only job like it in the world, because we have the opportunity to in many instances, introduce Irish to people that have never had an opportunity to learn Irish before. And I think that's so special, and it is something to be very passionate about.
Okay, thank you for that, Stiofán. That's very interesting. So following on from that then, obviously, as I said, you've been in the job sort of just under a year at this stage. Are you kind of, what has been the influence of Irish on your life? Are you glad that you went through the effort to learn it, or has it been a hindrance to you? Or, how do you, would you recommend to other people that they should learn Irish as well, or just from your own experience?
Yeah, so my view would be, I hope, or I wish everybody would have the opportunity to learn Irish, even if it's, 3 weeks. I think if everybody had the opportunity to learn Irish, it would add so much. The place name example is the one that I give, but I think there's something so special about knowing a wee bit about where you're from in terms of the place names that you see every day. So yeah, I would definitely advise everybody to learn Irish, and there's plenty of people who are going to learn it for a wee bit, and that's enough for them, because they'll get out of what they want, which is maybe just to satisfy a curiosity. But I think it's definitely something that I would recommend that everybody does. I've had probably the 9 most enjoyable years of my life learning Irish and working within the Irish language sector. I couldn't imagine not having Irish now, because really in every aspect of my life, whether it's work life, whether it's my social life, Irish is the language of communication. It's the language that I use on a day and daily basis. So it has made a huge impact to my life. It's opened doors and opportunities for me that I just wouldn't have had. Working in this job as an example, being able to meet the people that you meet. I was saying, last week I finished my degree, and one of the fellas on the course is a 79-year-old man, and this is his first degree, and it's like you have the opportunity to just meet these people that you just would not have the opportunity to meet otherwise. And I think that's an incredibly special thing about the Irish language, and particularly the sort of the culture of classes and night classes that we have, that it is so open to all and so inclusive of all, where you can have a 20-year-old chemical engineer sitting down beside an 80-year-old former bricklayer, and the bricklayer saying, no, you need to put the chevu in there. I think that's such an important thing in terms of breaking down barriers within our society. And it's something that we see as learners on a relatively frequent basis, and it's just special. So it's definitely probably the most, of all the things that I've done in my life, it's probably the most positive thing that I've done, and the thing I'm most glad of.
Okay, thanks for that, Clár. So just then to bring this wee sort of interview to an end, then as mar ocal scoir, as they say in Irish, what would be your sort of your recommendations to learners? What is the best way to actually go about learning the language and increasing your confidence and your fluency in the language?
I think the first thing, don't be worried about making mistakes. We all make mistakes when we're speaking on a day and daily basis anyway. But if you make a mistake and say you're corrected by a teacher and they explain, we don't do it because of this, you've learned something. And that's how we learn. We learn from making mistakes. And I think that's an incredibly important thing. And if I think to, children of 2 or 3 years of age, they're not worried about making mistakes when they're speaking. But unfortunately, as adults, we're taught that making a mistake's a bad thing. It's not. Making a mistake's a very good thing because it allows you to learn and develop. So that would be the first thing. And, as far Gaelic Christian, the Burla Clistja, broken Irish is better than clever English. I think that's so true. If you're speaking Irish, the best way to learn is to speak. And if you make mistakes, that's 100%. It's good to see. And for any teacher, it's good to see somebody trying. And even if they are making a few mistakes, that we can work on that and develop that. And finally, enjoy it. Enjoy going to classes, enjoy the social aspect. And I think the best way to learn something is to actually enjoy it. If it's a chore, you're not going to want to learn it. And nobody'd want to learn it if it's something they don't enjoy. So do try to enjoy the Irish and learn Irish and make it something that you look forward to, because I think if you do that, that's a major battle out of the way in terms of learning the language, because it's something that you look forward to doing.
All right. Well, Gurramila Maigah, Clár, thanks very much for coming in today and for chatting to us. Gurramaigav, I say chat to Hortun and you, anyone who's been listening, thanks very much. We'll see you all later. Slán go foill.